Let's talk about solving systems of equations by using elimination. We've used graphing, we've used substitution. Elimination can be a lot of fun. It can be kind of easy depending on how it's set up. Now the trick is, you're going to add your two equations together here, and your goal is you want to cancel out one of the variables. Let me show you. Now in this case, you notice I have negative 4x and positive 4x. If I add these together, I get 0x, which essentially becomes 0. Love it. So I'm going to do the same thing to the rest of my terms here. So I'm going to do 8y plus negative 2y, I get 6y. I do negative 12 plus negative 24, and I get negative 36. And now I just have 6y equals negative 36, a nice, easy, one-step equation. Divide each side by 6, I get y equals negative 6. And you might think, oh boy, we're done. Not quite. You still have to plug in your y value to figure out what x is, because you haven't solved the system if you haven't figured out what represents both variables. Excuse me. So I'm going to go with 4x plus 8y equals negative 24. Doesn't matter which equation you use, really. Just, you just plug in your the value you just solved for. In this case, I get y equals negative 6. So I'm going to plug that in for y right here. So 4x plus, now 8 times negative 6 equals negative 24. So now I just multiply it out, negative 48. And I solve it like a two-step equation. Add positive 48 to each side. I get 4x equals 24. Divide each side by 4. And I get x equals 6. So I can write my answer now as an ordered pair. 6 for my x value, or my input. Negative 6 is my y value, or my output. And that's how you go about solving a system using elimination. Let's try another example here. I'm going to go with this one here. Now, let's see. I'm going to stack them again. Now, if I try to use addition, it's not going to necessarily work, because negative 9y plus negative 9y is not going to cancel out. However, this time, I can subtract. Now, some teachers, they'll ask you to multiply the whole thing by negative 1. You can do that. What I like to do is, I'm just going to do a few different subtraction problems here, that's all. So I have negative 2x minus negative 4x. And what do you know, I have two negatives here. Gives me positive, I like that. So then I get negative 2x plus 4x gives me 2x. Here I have negative 9y minus negative 9y. Again, two negatives, positive. Negative 9y plus 9y cancels out. Love it. Same here, I got the same thing. Negative 25 minus negative 23. Now, wait a second. Two negatives. Got positive. Now I just have negative 25 plus 23. Gives me negative 2. Divide each side by 2. And I get x equals negative 1. So in this case, instead of adding necessarily, I subtracted. And again, some teachers will tell you multiply by negative 1. I just use subtraction. So you can go either way, whatever your teacher emphasizes. Listen to your teacher. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in x, and I'll use the first equation this time. So I get negative 2x minus 9y equals negative 25. So now I'm going to plug in negative 1 here for x. So I'm going to get negative 2 times negative 1 minus 9y equals negative 25. Negative 2 times negative 1 gives me positive 2. Positive 2 minus 9y equals negative 25. Subtract 2 from each side. I get negative 9y equals negative 27. Divide each side by negative 9, and I get y equals positive 3. And again, I can write my answer as an ordered pair. Negative 1, positive 3. Nice and easy. Now you might run into a problem at some point, and I'll show you. Let's take a look at number 10 here. Uh-oh. Nothing here cancels out. I've got 4x and x I've got 9y and negative 3y. Now your goal is you want to cancel out one of the variables. In this case, you have a couple of options. Now what you want is you want the same coefficient in front of one of the variables. So I could go with my y's or I can go with my x. I'm going to go with my x, and I'll show you why. I'm going to multiply this whole thing here by 4, which means I'd have to distribute to each of my terms here. By doing that, I'm going to rewrite what I have. I have negative 4x plus 9y equals 9. Now, by distributing here, I get positive 4x minus 4 times negative 3y here gives me negative 12y. And 4 times negative 6 gives me negative 24. Now, I have a nice system that I can cancel out my x's. So I'm going to add across just like so. Negative 4x plus positive 4x cancels out. Love it. Positive 9y plus negative 9y gives me negative 3y. 9 plus negative 24 gives me negative 15. Divide each side by negative 3, and I get y equals 5. Again, I'm not done yet. I gotta plug this in. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my second equation here. Here's why. I get x minus 3y equals negative 6. I get x all alone here for the most part, so once I plug in y, it should be pretty easy. So I'm going to do x minus 3 times 5 equals negative 6. Simplify it. X minus 15 equals negative 6. Alright, just let me shrink this down here. Cool. I'm going to add 15 to each side like so. Now I just get x equals 9. So I got myself a nice ordered pair here. 9 and 5. So, again, if you don't have the same coefficient in front of a variable, that's okay. You can do it. You can use some multiplication to get there, just like I did here. So this is just a brief run through of how to solve systems using elimination. It's a nice method. A lot of people like it. It can be nice and easy if the equations are set up well. Good luck.